Okay, here's a sad story. I was going to work one night, probably about 10 years ago. It was a Thursday night, I'm pretty sure. I remember because the Dunn Benson drag strip used to have motorcycle night on Thursdays, and that meant every Thursday night when I was going to work, I'd be passed by a whole bunch of motorcycles that were speeding. People would go down there and drag race all evening, and then they would have their testosterone up and want to rawhide it all the way home. I had just gotten on I-40, and there's, guess, about a 2 mile straightaway between my exit and the first curve. And I was in the fast lane, and I was passing an 18-wheeler, and two motorcycles came up on me. I could see them in the rearview mirror. They came up on me really fast. I mean, I was going 75. They probably were going close to 100 to come up on me that fast. So I figured as soon as I passed the truck, I'd get out of their way. But I didn't even have time, because as soon as I closed maybe a 10-foot gap from the truck, they zoomed around me on the right. And they were riding side by side. So they zoomed around me on the right and zoomed back over into the fast lane in front of me. But the one on the inside went a little too far over, and that forced the guy on the right to go off into the shoulder, and he hit the rumble strips. And when he hit the rumble strips, you could see that he was losing the bike. So I knew he was fixing to crash, and I didn't want to be in that lane when he crashed. So I knew the 18-wheeler was behind me, but I didn't have time to check any of my mirrors to see where he was. I just got over as quick as I could, and the guy hit one of those metal poles that are in the median. The poles and the cables are supposed to prevent you from going into oncoming traffic, and he hit one of them, and the bike shredded apart. Bike parts were coming across the lane in front of me, and I didn't know where the 18-wheeler was, and I know that it takes them longer to stop, so I just figured if I got all the way over past the shoulder with all four wheels in the grass, that I'd be out of his way. So I went all the way over, and I jumped out of the car, and the 18-wheeler driver stopped right behind me in the shoulder, and he was getting out of the cab, and so he and I checked to make sure that traffic was clear for us to run over there, and we ran across the road to the guy that was riding the motorcycle. His side was visibly caved in, so I know he hit one of those poles and had broken some ribs, and he couldn't talk. He was gurgling, and there was blood coming out of his mouth, so I knew that his lung had been punctured. The 18-wheeler driver was already on the phone with 911, and part of my first aid training when I was in the Army was to give mouth to mouth, so I knew how to do it. So I said to the truck driver, ask 911 if they want me to pull off his helmet and give him mouth to mouth. So he asked him, and he turned to me and said, "No, don't remove his helmet." Now his helmet had a mouthpiece that came out a bit, and it was up to here, so there was no way of reaching his mouth with the helmet on. So I said again, there's no way I can give him mouth to mouth with the helmet on. So he asked 911 again, and they said a second time, "Do not remove the helmet." So we kept telling the guy an ambulance is on the way. His friend had turned around and come back, and his friend was standing there, and his friend was going, "Come on, Jay, you got this, man. Come on, Jay, hang in there." And I'm thinking, no, he don't got this. His lungs are filling up with blood, and there's nothing that I can do about it. And right about then, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I turned around. It was my daughter, Rachel. "What are you doing on the side of the interstate at 10 p.m.? Well, she was just going home from work, and passing through all of this traffic and mess and looked over and said, I think that's my dad. And then a second later, I think that's my dad's car. So she pulled over and ran across the interstate also. So I told her the same thing. I said, you know, we want to give him CPR, but 911 says not to remove the helmet. I would imagine it's their policy because the chance of a spinal injury. So we couldn't do anything except her and I knelt there beside him, and she held one hand and I held the other, and I recited the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Went through that, and partway through, I heard his death rattle, and the gurgling stopped and the struggling stopped, and I knew that at that moment he had passed. And we turned around, and you could see that the ambulance was in the traffic with the lights on and was still coming, but it was too late. So I found out later his name was Jason Webster. He was a husband and father of 4 girls. So it's a terrible waste to see someone pass that way. Holding someone's hand as they die is something that you never forget. So I think about that often.